Hi, friends. Today's reading has to do with poetry again, and we're going to be looking at something that's a little different that's connected to poetry, and that is slam poetry. Now, slam poetry is a type of spoken word, and the difference between a spoken word and slam poetry, I'm going to go over what that is and what that means. You may or may not have heard of that. Here's a little bit of a history of slam poetry. It says slam poetry started in the 1980s in Chicago by a man named Mark Smith. He wanted to be creative with poems that he wrote. And instead of just reading the poem, he would perform them using rhythm. So really, during that time, there would be a microphone in a lounge, in a place, in a restaurant, where poets could just go and kind of just speak their or say their poems and or read them, and that still exists today. In this case, this man decided, I'm going to do something a little different. And so what he would do is Mark Smith would get up there to the microphone and say his poem, speak his poem with a different type, with passion, with power, with a lot of kind of like a performance. And so that's what turned into slam poetry. And slam poetry has evolved in so many beautiful ways. You can find slam poetry that have influences of hip hop and other types of music and rhythm and beat. And so for me personally, I love listening to spoken word or slam poetry that has got that hip hop beat to it. And a lot of these slam poetry, the slam poems, have a very powerful message. And it's supposed to really get the audience to really feel something strong. So in the second paragraph, it says slam poetry is a type of spoken word. Spoken word is read slightly differently than a regular poem because it is read as a performance. Slam poetry does just this, but with more passion and power to get a strong feeling from the audience. Not all spoken word is slam poetry. So you could have spoken word, which is not performed so powerfully. There's a little difference, but it is slightly different. So what I have shared here is a video of a 9-year-old girl, and her name is Asha Christensen, and she is performing a slam poem that you're going to be watching in a little bit. So you're going to click on this link right here and watch her perform, and it has to do with writing. So that is the topic of her poem. If you would like to read it afterwards, you can read it. You can see that it's pretty long, but this is exactly what you will hear her say in her poem as you watch the YouTube link. Okay, so if you've listened to it and you feel good, you don't need to be looking at this particular read this particular poem. Sorry for those pop-ups. Sometimes when I have mail, it just pops up. So anyways, down over here are the questions that have to do with the poems. And what you're going to do is just read these questions before you go ahead and listen to the video. That will always help you. So this is what the questions ask you. What are your thoughts and feelings about Asha's slam poem? Use the complete sentences. So you're going to use complete sentences to respond to what are the thoughts and feelings that you have after listening to Asha's poem. And then what story is she sharing in her poem? Remember, we talked about asking what story does the poet share and what message, right? And the message really here is the theme. So there is a theme in Asha's poem. It is not the same thing as a story. The story is what her poem is telling you. The theme is the message that Asha's trying to share in her slam poem. And then what kind of emotions was Asha sharing in her poem? Give an example of a part of her poem where she shared this emotion. Okay, so take a look at that carefully. Listen to the slam poem that Asha is performing. We hope you enjoy it. And there's so many beautiful slam poetry pieces out there. You can ask a grown-up to help you find them. All right, so do that and enjoy it. And we can't wait to hear what you think about it. All right, see you later. Bye.